So what's it really going to cost to design and build your own naturally efficient home? You've probably heard a wide array of different stories, like paying only $10K for materials, which sounds great, or spending as much as 30% more than conventional construction, which is not so great. So with all this conflicting information, it's really hard to know what you're actually getting into. This is especially true with natural building, where material costs and DIY labor can really be the driver behind what you can actually afford. In this video, I'm going to talk about upfront cost analysis because this is even more important than the building cost itself. So this is including the land costs, the development costs, and then the build costs all together as one. I know firsthand that trying to figure out your expenses can feel overwhelming and confusing. But don't worry, I am going to break it down step by step. By the end of this video, you'll understand the process of cost analysis and be so much better equipped to know what you're in for when you're developing raw land and setting out to build your resilient home. Okay, so let's get into it. The first question you should be asking is, how much can I afford? And then you can reverse engineer everything from there. I actually don't recommend starting by getting ballpark pricing from contractors right away, although you will eventually do this. Nothing is going to make you feel more discouraged and in over your head than hearing how high prices are today. And this is especially true if you're ballparking numbers from 10 years ago and you thought that that's what you could build, or if you were thinking that you were going to build a bigger house. Most people don't even attempt to build a sustainable home because of the additional costs. And that is the truth. Natural materials and energy efficient designs end up costing more, sometimes up to 30% more in materials and labor. But that doesn't necessarily mean that a naturally efficient home can be out of reach. If what you're really after is a resilient home and a legacy property, there are plenty of ways to offset costs and still keep the project within your budget. Being an organized and resourceful leader can really make a big difference in making your project a success. When I built my home back in 2019, I had $60K to work with. During the early stages of construction, the COVID crisis hit and the material prices really started to climb, but I was so determined to get a roof over my head. And while the project was never finished, not related to budget or cost at all, it gave me a glimmer of hope. It showed me how creative and resourceful you can be when you set your mind to build an affordable structure. If you're dreaming about building your own affordable, naturally efficient home, I created a free resource for you, especially if you're in the process of still looking for land. It's called the Land Legacy Checklist. It'll help you evaluate land and catch those hidden costs that a lot of people do miss. So check out the link in the description below to grab your copy. So let's do the math. The first step in cost analysis is figuring out your all-in costs. And I don't just mean the price of the house. I'm talking about the land itself, the development fees like the well, the septic, the driveway, etc., the soft costs like permitting, engineering, drafting, etc., and then the actual build. Most people fund their homes with a combination of liquid cash and a loan. If you're paying entirely in cash, that is your all-in costs. So that's pretty simple straight out of the gate. But for most of us, financing is probably our best bet, even if we have some liquid cash to put down. If that's you, the best starting point is to talk to a few lenders and get some soft pull pre-approvals. Lenders will often ask you for income statements, expenses, bank accounts to essentially figure out your debt to income ratio. That number is what determines what they'll actually lend to you. Keep in mind that land loans and construction loans are different from one another, and both of these are different than a traditional mortgage. They often come with higher interest rates, and not every bank provides both. Ideally, you want to find a bank that handles both construction and land loans, but if not, then you may have to just have different lenders for those. Talk to a few banks and get some options. Then take the average of the numbers that you've been offered, combining the land and the construction loan if needed, and that will give you a really realistic idea of your all-in costs. And here's a quick word of caution. Some banks will approve you for more than you can actually afford. This is where it's really important to run your own numbers. Go through your income, track your expenses, and make sure that what the bank offered you is actually going to be something that's sustainable for you in the long term. Okay, so let's start with fixed costs. Before you even talk to contractors, you're going to want want to understand how much it's actually going to cost to develop raw land. Development costs are some of the least flexible expenses, and they vary a lot depending on your location, your permitting requirements, and available natural resources. So when you're estimating costs, I recommend working in this order. Number 1, development costs, because these are least within your control. Number 2 is the land price, which is somewhat in your control. And number 3 is the house size, which is completely in your control. Let's start with development costs because you need to factor this in before you even buy the land. So why is that? Each local jurisdiction is going to have their own regulations, their own fees, and their own access to utilities, or if you're in a rural area, a lack of utilities. Each area also has different natural resources that are available as well. If you already have a location in mind, you can start to get clear on what utilities you're going to need, what kind of access is possible, and what kind of permits that you're going to need to secure. So if you're still in the land search phase, make sure to grab that land legacy checklist in the description below. It'll help you get ahead on a lot of these hidden expenses. So let's first go through a list of development costs that you can expect. Just a quick disclaimer before we get into it is that the costs I'm about to share are in US pricing and they can vary greatly depending on the region that you're actually in. Prices are current as of the date of this video and can change over time. So let's first talk about water. Where is the water on your site? So if you are going with a well, you're going to want to check out the neighboring wells. So you're going to want to look at if they're producing and how deep they are. The deeper the drill, the higher the cost. So well drilling is based on the feet that you're going down or the depth that you're going down. And so it's usually 25 to 65 per foot that you're going down. And usually they're not under 50 feet, especially if you're right by a river, and they rarely go over 300 to 400 feet. So by and large, it can range from 5,000 all the way to 30,000, and the 30,000 would probably include your pump, your wiring, your treatment, and any kind of permits that you're going to need. Make sure when you're looking at the neighboring wells that you pay attention to the gallons per minute. This is really what determines how much the well actually yields and if it's going to adequately supply your daily activities. You can use tools like Land ID, which is one of my favorites, to check out the neighboring wells and get more information on them. And specifically on there, you can tune into the depth of the well, and this is going to help you start to analyze the costs of the well in your particular area. This isn't always a guarantee, but it's just a good starting point to start crunching your numbers. If the nearby wells aren't producing or the aquifer is not as abundant as it used to be, you might want to look into rainwater capture. Just keep in mind that this starts to add up in cost because you end up having dual plumbing systems, so sometimes this can be up to $20,000 or $30,000. So make sure you look into that before you consider rainwater capture as your primary water source, because that can add up. Then there is septic, and this is one of your bigger expenses. This system can cost anywhere from $8,000 to $50,000. So there is a wide range here, and it really just depends on your soils testing, the engineering, the type of septic system that you need based on your soils, and the permitting costs as well. And some local jurisdictions make this a little bit trickier, and they require certain specifications that can attribute to a higher price in the septic system. If you're on the grid and you're using municipal sewage, you are going to pay much less. If you live in a rural area and you want to do compost toilets, by all means do that. Just triple check that you're actually allowed to do it. In many jurisdictions, they do not allow it. Next up is power. If you're just hooking up an electric line to the street, you'll pay for the distance from the street to the house or the build location, any poles that need to be installed, and sometimes transformers that need to be installed. And this can run anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000. However, if you plan to go with solar instead, you should expect to pay anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 for a small family system. Plus, you want to make sure that you have an insulated space for the battery storage. So you'll probably need to build a little shed. And during construction, if you don't have your solar set up right away, you can use a generator, which most people do during construction anyway. Next up is driveways. Driveways actually can really add up depending on the distance and slope, especially if you need to do some land clearing as a part of the project. For example, a 200 linear foot gravel driveway might cost you $4,000. And then there's permitting, and you really don't want to forget this one. Permits for utilities, driveway, and the house itself can really add up, and in some cases it can be in thousands. So you definitely want to check your permit fees. So once you understand these development costs and start to get some estimates on what it costs in your area, you can start to add them all together as your development costs. In the US, you can generally expect to spend at least $25,000 on development costs, and in many cases, in rural areas, for example, that can be up to $100,000. Especially if you need a deep well, you need septic, you need solar, and you have a long driveway. Or if you live in a county with crazy permitting. Okay, next up is the land price. If you're searching for land, you've probably noticed that there is a wide variety of different prices that are out there. Some less expensive properties might seem attractive, but they might have some hidden costs that you're going to want to avoid. So you want to think of flood and landslide zones, poor quality soils, which can affect the cost of your septic systems and the foundations of your building, zoning restrictions, limited access like landlocked parcels or parcels with tricky bridges. That is a really quick breakdown, and there is a lot more to look out for. So make sure you check out the Legacy Land Checklist down below to make sure you get the full breakdown. Sometimes you can find habitable land for around $50,000, but typically you'll start to see good parcels starting around $100,000, at least in parts of the US. Premium land with good views, near charming towns, rolling hills, near nice quaint streams can often be around $200,000 or more. So just make sure that you can build a house that is enough for you while accounting for the development costs and the land cost. Don't do what I did on a land deal where I spent too much on the land and then I came to find out the development costs were so high that I barely had anything left to work with for building a house, which really didn't work because my partner and I both work from home, so living out of a 500 square foot house just didn't make sense. So I had to backtrack and buy another less expensive lot with less development expenses. So if you need a larger house, choosing a lower priced property can help you achieve that. Just keep in mind that low priced land can come with higher development costs. So this is a lever that you're actually going to need to play with when you're looking for land. If you're working with a smaller budget, you're going to need to make some trade-offs. It's either going to be a smaller house or a lower priced lot, and it's totally up to you. Which leads me to the next and more important point of the size of your house. First of all, if you are going with a lender, you're going to want to ask them if they have a minimum square footage of house that you can build under their loan. Most of them won't do smaller houses under 800 square feet to essentially protect their investment. If you really want to build a tiny house, you're going to have to do some digging and find some lenders who are willing to work with you. Your build budget comes down to two things: what your lender will allow and what you can realistically afford. Once you know the lender's requirements, here is the process. You're going to want to talk to at least 3 local contractors, and you want to talk to a variety of different contractors, some that are high-end and do custom homes, and then some on the lower end that do more budget-friendly homes. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take the average of those estimates, and that is typically in the form of a cost per square foot that they'll give you. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your land costs and your development costs, and you're going to subtract that from your all-in costs that you gathered earlier. And essentially, that is your build budget. So you're going to take the remaining build budget and you're going to divide that by the average cost per square foot that you got from your local contractors. And essentially that gives you the size of the house that you can realistically afford to build on the lot that you're thinking of. This can be a really sobering moment for a lot of folks, but having some parameters can really spark creativity. As long as you stay flexible and are open to making trade-offs, you will certainly find a way to make it happen. So I know that there's a lot of different ways to save along the journey, and I'm actually going to break that that down in a whole separate video because this video is getting way too long. But for now, it's really important to start with a realistic number. It's always better to aim high and have it feel like it's a major win when you've saved more than you expected than be stressed out when you've gone over budget. If you save more than you expect, like if you're DIYing or you're just being resourceful with different materials, then you can reward yourself. Maybe you can treat yourself to nicer finishes and furniture, but just knowing that you came under budget can feel pretty great. So as you can see, figuring out the true cost of a sustainable build isn't just about the materials and the square footage. It's really about the whole picture, from land development to land cost to house size to financing. There's a lot to consider. So here's the hard truth that I've seen time and time again. A lot of people make expensive mistakes in the process. Things like designing your home before you have your site in mind, hiring the wrong professionals at the wrong time, specifically hiring them too soon, or just overlooking hidden costs that just blow the budget out of proportion. Simple mistakes like these can add tens of thousands to your project, and they're totally avoidable. So that's exactly why I created the Resilient by Design program. It's a step-by-step process that walks you through the entire process of designing and building your own home, essentially helping you avoid pitfalls and help you make more confident, informed decisions. If you have land and you're getting ready to design and build your own resilient home, I would love to chat with you on your process. So please feel free to book a complimentary call with me. I will put a link in the description below. Budgeting is a huge topic, so if you want me to do a deeper dive into specific costs or do a full breakdown of one category like materials and labor, let me know in the comments. Okay, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!